Hey, this is Mark watching MTC Media here. Notre Dame, Miami just ended 27-24. Miami walks away with the win. And for Notre Dame, certainly there is a lot to unpack, especially in that first half. And I thought that the coaching staff did not have the best first half. I didn't think that Mike Denbrock play calling was all that great. I understood at the very beginning throwing the quick passes and that stuff, getting CJ Carr some confidence, but you wasn't going to loosen Miami up until you went downfield. Now, I thought there was some first downs in the first half where you could have tried at least test it downfield to loosen up that defense. You couldn't throw bubble screens and quick outs the entire game. And in the first half, that's what Notre Dame did, seemingly, along with not giving Jeremiah Love the ball enough and Jadarian Price the ball enough. If you had told me that Love and Price were combined for 16 carries for 78 yards, I would have said that both of them get hurt. Because there's no way the combination of carries I thought would only be 16s. I thought there would be some sort of creative ways by, having Carr make some plays in the first half. And, even if you're only getting 2 or 3 yards in the rushing game to establish that with your offensive line, which frankly ended up getting gassed in the fourth quarter, which is another thing that seemed to be a problem for the Fighting Irish and for Chris Ash. The first half, again, it just seemed like there was issues of how they were going to get pressure on Carson Beck. The front four couldn't get pressure. There was times where there were some blitzes early on that couldn't come close to getting home. In the first half, they had a hard time covering Malachi Tony, the freshman for Miami, who ended up finishing 6 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. But in the second half was tapered down quite a bit, especially after that first drive where they shoved it down Notre Dame's throat coming out the locker room. The end of the half touchdown was one of those things where if you attack the ball and don't let the ball come to you, then that's probably an incomplete pass. Don't think it would have been an interception, but it would have been an incomplete pass. Instead, Miami gets this wonderful one-handed catch from C.J. Daniels for the touchdown. So there were some things in the first half I thought that put Notre Dame behind the 8 ball. They were down 21-7 and looked like they were going nowhere anytime soon. Where I felt like in the fourth quarter that happened, it really go back to midway through the third quarter was the first time they really allowed Carr to throw it downfield, and he hit Malachi Fields on a 26-yarder, and that's when I thought that things changed, because Carr looked like he went from, hey, I don't want to make a mistake, to, hey, I want to play football. I want to make a play. And then everything, you could see his confidence growing. You could see him running just a little bit faster on the quarterback draws, which I thought it was way too many of those. Carr should not have the most rushing attempts out of Notre Dame's running back stable. But they started letting them play. When they started letting them play, the offense looked different. In the second half, the defense looked like it had at least a little bit more in way of being able to get to Carson back. But still, they only had 3 pass breakups, only 2 tackle for losses, and 1 sack. And that was it. That was not a defense that harassed. I can understand if the stats look like this and there was more quarterback hurries. But again, in that statistic, Notre Dame only had 1 quarterback hurry. Now, there was a couple times they got Beck to throw off his back foot, but they didn't take advantage or make a play. And I talked about it before. Where was the field flipping plays going to be made by the defense? And they weren't made tonight at all. And some of that is probably on the players. Some of that is probably on Chris Ash. So it's a little bit on both sides. But I thought that Notre Dame's coaches, the 2 coordinators, truly let down this team in the first half. Because, again, once we got to about midway through the third quarter, this whole game changed. And really Miami held off Notre Dame to win. Because for Notre Dame to outscore them 17-6 in the fourth quarter with a freshman quarterback, and they really, really get it going. Miami was holding on for dear life. But again, coach staff didn't do them any justice in the first half, and it came back to haunt them. And look, I understand what Marcus Freeman was saying going into halftime. The front four is not going to gain pressure. It's going to be a long night. Those guys had to win their battles. They didn't win their battles. And in that first half, they didn't win them at all. It was hard for them to win them in the second half. I thought that in the second half, at the very least, Traore was more of a factor in the second half. He ended up with 6 tackles, 3 solos, 3 assists, 1 sack for 7 yards, a tackle for loss. And that was him in the second half, I guess, finding his footing a little bit more. But there was also times where he spun himself. He was trying to win on the spin. And Beck, the veteran quarterback that he is, would step up in the pocket. So, Traore was spinning himself sometimes out of the play, out of the pass rush. And Notre Dame just looked like a team that wasn't being coached in the first half to win. And then they looked like a team, frankly, that on the offensive and defensive lines, they got tired. There was times where they forced Miami into third and longs. There were several third downs. There was something they had to win. Miami ended up being 5 for 14 on third downs, 1 for 2 on fourth downs, but they got the ones, especially in the first half, that they needed, the third and 8s, the third 9s. Notre Dame can't give, they can't give those up. They were pretty good on penalties. Christian Gray penalty was probably a needed penalty because that was probably going to be a touchdown, so he took the pass interference. Notre Dame's 2 turnovers certainly did not help the cause at all. So there were some things that that really, yes, you can say it's the first game, and if it's the first game against Central Michigan, they probably still win, and then you can go back and say, oh, there's some things, yeah, we won, and that's what we came out here to do, but there's some things we need to fix so we can get better. You could do that, but when you're opening out on the road, yet again, against a ranked opponent, yet again, those things, those little mistakes certainly make a big difference. So that's our wrap up here with the Golden Dome Report. Notre Dame falls to Miami 27-24. They are up next, I believe, September 13th. And it's when Texas A&M goes to South Bend. So the Fighting Irish should get a couple weeks to really break this down, not only from a player perspective, but also from a coaching perspective. This is Marcus Washington, MTC Media.